Assalamualaikum Doctor. Today we would like to present about Chapter 10, Understanding Individual Behaviour. Now let's talk about Section 10.1, the focus on goals of organizational behaviour, or we call it OB. Good management means looking past what is visible. We have to look beneath the surface to understand the hidden psychological force driving how employees act. OB focus on three main areas. Firstly, individual behavior. What makes a single person tick? This includes their attitude, personality, and motivation. And the second one, group behavior. How do people act in teams? This covers leadership, norms, and conflict. And the third one, organizational aspect. The big picture, this involves the company culture, structure, and HR policy. And the conclusion, understanding these three areas help us manage people much more effectively. And let's look at the next slide. These slides explain the organization as an iceberg concept. The iceberg metaphor, just like an iceberg, an organization has parts you can see on top and parts hidden underwater. For visible aspects, on the surface, we see the formal aspects. This includes things like company strategies and objectives, official policy, structures, and technology, chain of command and formal authority. And for hidden aspects, but beneath the surface lies the biggest part. These are the hidden, informal aspects, employee attitudes and perceptions, group norms and informal interactions, interpersonal and team conflicts. So, conclusion, to truly understand an organization, we must look at both the visible and the hidden parts. And let's move to the next slide. Next, what are the goals of organizational behavior? The core goals. The three core goals are to explain, predict, and influence employee behavior. Managers need to know why employees act a certain way, how they will respond to decisions, and how to steer that behavior positively. The Big Six metrics. To do this, we focus on the Big Six corporate metrics shown here. First, employee productivity, efficiency, and output. Second, absenteeism, failing to show up to work. 3. Turnover, employee leaving the company. 4. Organizational citizenship behavior, going above and beyond the basic job requirement. 5. Job satisfaction, an employee general attitude toward their job. 6. Workplace misbehavior, action that intentionally disrupt or harm the organization. So for the conclusion, by focusing on these 6 areas, managers can better reach those 3 core goals. And let's look at how we measure this next. Moving on to section 10.2, let's explain the role that attitudes play in job performance. The core question, what makes up an attitude? It actually consists of 3 distinct components: the brain, the heart, and the feet. The 3 components, the cognitive component or the brain, this is purely conceptual. It includes the belief, opinion, knowledge, and information a person holds. The affective component or the heart, this is the emotional, feeling part. It is what most people mean when they talk about attitude in daily life. Next, the behavioral component or the feet. This is the final step. It is the explicit intention to act in a specific way based on those thoughts and feelings. For conclusion, together these 3 components shape how employees perceive their environment and perform at work. Next, let's see how this affects actual job results. Next, the 3 core attitudes. Job satisfaction. This is the employee general attitude toward their work. Second, job involvement. This is how much their identity and self-worth connect to their job performance. And the third one, organizational commitment. This represent their loyalty to and alignment with the company's goals. And for the conclusion, by measuring these 3 attitudes, managers can accurately gauge overall engagement. And that's all for me.
let's move on to section 10.3 and look how we can best describe personality. Personality is the unique pattern of emotion, thought, and behavior that indicate how we react and interact with the world around us. To measure this, we rely on two major frameworks. First, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator or MBTI, which uses 4 core dimensions like extroversion versus introversion, sensing versus intuition, thinking versus feeling, judging versus perceiving, to create 16 distinct personality types. Second, and highly backed up by predictive research, is the Big 5 model. The Big 5 model focuses on a spectrum of 5 core traits directly tied to actual job performance. These include extroversion for sociability, agreeableness for cooperation, emotional stability to see how calm or insecure someone is under pressure, and lastly, openness to experience, which measure imagination and adaptability to change. Next, let's talk about emotional intelligence or EI. This is our ability to cope with environment demand and pressures, and it often matters a lot more than traditional IQ when it comes to the top performance. Emotional intelligence is built on 5 dimensions, which is self-awareness, self-management, self-motivation, empathy, and social skill. When looking at traits that predict workplace behavior, we have to consider 2 key concepts. First, locus on control. Do you believe you control your own fate internally, or do you view yourself as bound or locked internally? Second is Machiavellianism, which describes individuals who are highly pragmatic, emotionally distant, and firmly believe that the end justifies the means. Now, turning to section 10.4, let's explore the power of perception at work. Perception is the process by which we organize and interpret sensory impression to give meaning to our environment. It's important to remember that what we perceive isn't always objective reality. 3 main factors influence this process. The first one, the perceiver, whose personal characteristics like attitude, motivate, and past experience shape what they see. Second, the target, which involves the trait of the person or object being observed, like their loudness or attractiveness. And finally, the content, meaning the environmental element at that time of observation, such as the timing, location, or even temperature. Finally, let's take a look at how we judge others through attribution theory and how we look for shortcuts. When we observe an employee behavior, we try to determine is it caused internally or externally based on 3 things. The first one, this tiny-vertiness. Do they act like this in many situations or just this one? Conservatism. Does everyone act the same way? And consistency. Do they do this regularly over time? Because analyzing everything takes time, our brain uses perceptual shortcut and bias. We have the fundamental attribute error, which is we blame the person and ignore the situation, and the self-serving bias, where we take credit for success but blame luck for failure. We also use selective perfection by speeding reading situation based on our own interests, stereotype based on group identity, and the halo effect, where single trait lead us to define a person's entire character.
Okay, for this slide, we're going to talk about learning theories and their relevance in shaping behavior towards individual or a group within an organization. So, first of all, we need to know that learning is relatively permanent change in behavior that occurs through experience. So, it is important because it helps employees to develop new knowledge like skill and also provide a positive work environment. So there are 3 main learning theories, as you can see here. The first one is classical conditioning. So which classical conditioning explain that people learn through association. So, for example, when employees hear safety alarm, for example, they immediately will stop working because they associate that the alarm with a danger. So that's how people learn and they interpret it in their real life. So from the theory to action. And for second one is operant conditioning, which is state that behavior is influenced by its consequences. So in a simple words, that employees are more likely to repeat behaviors that are rewarded, while their like a punishment will discourage their undesirable behavior. So they will avoid to do undesirable behavior to avoid getting punished, and they will tend to do things that are rewarded. So the third theory is the social learning theory, which is to explain that employees can learn by observing others. So this learning relevant, I would say relevant, because they help manager to improve the performance of the employee and help to increase the motivation, because they imitating experience by their colleague, their our manager, and this will also help to increase their motivation, support their effective training, and of course encourage them to provide a positive workplace behavior. So as you can see here, OB or organization behavior is the study of how individual or any groups the way they behave within an organization. So nowadays, manager facing a lot of contemporary issues such as employee engagement, workforce diversity, or any ethical behavior, even work and life balance also identified as a organization behavior lah within an individual. So this issue influence employment motivation, productivity, and organizational performance. So by addressing these all challenges, manager can create a positive work environment, improve employee satisfaction, and somehow can help the organization itself to remain competitive.